This video shows how to perform a suspension job on a 2004 Honda Pilot. We'll install shocks in the rear, but in the front we'll install these Duralast Loaded Strut assemblies for a faster, easier install and better ride control. Now you can do this job at home with hand tools. You'll need these tools for the job. Bigger tools like the 36mm socket and torque wrench you can borrow from AutoZone through the Loan-A-Tool program. You'll also need a good hydraulic jack, some jack stands, and wheel chocks. Make sure the car is in park with the parking brake on before starting. At the wheel, loosen the lug nuts, then raise the car with a hydraulic jack and set the car on a jack stand. Be sure to use secure jack points. With the car safely raised, use a 19mm socket with the 1/2-inch breaker bar to remove the lug nuts and the wheel. Use a 12mm socket to remove the brake line from the assembly. Support the lower control arm with the jack. Use a 17mm wrench and a 6mm Allen wrench to remove the sway bar link nut. Adjust the jack to get a good angle to remove the link and set it to the side. Remove the wheel speed sensor from the assembly with a 10mm socket. Loosen and remove the axle nut with a 36mm deep socket. You can borrow this from AutoZone through Loan-A-Tool. Use a mallet and a punch to drive the axle through the splines. Loosen and remove the two lower strut bolts with a 22mm wrench and a 22mm socket, starting with the top bolt. You may need the mallet and punch to drive the bolts out. Carefully remove the CV axle from the knuckle and then remove the assembly from the knuckle. Go under the hood and lift up on the cowl cover to expose the top nuts. Now this cover has two sections, so you'll just lift the section you're working on right now. Use a 14mm deep socket to loosen and remove two of the top three nuts. When removing the final nut, hold onto the assembly so it doesn't fall. Once the nut is off, remove the assembly. Install the new assembly, aligned just like the old assembly. Install and tighten the top nuts. Line up the plastic clips and snap the cowl cover back into place. Make sure to feed the washer fluid hose through the corner clips. Install the CV axle back into the knuckle and then install the assembly back onto the knuckle. Install the lower strut bolts, starting with the top bolt, and tighten the bolts. Install the wheel speed sensor. Install the sway bar link. Install the brake line. Install the axle nut. On the axle nut, you'll need to use a punch to push an indent into the crease of the axle. Install the wheel and torque the lug nuts. Then lower the vehicle and remove the jack. Repeat this on the other side and you're ready to move to the rear. For the rear, raise the car and remove the wheel following the same safety procedures as the front. Use a 17mm socket to remove the top shock bolt. Use the jack to add support and get better alignment when removing the bolts. Remove the bottom shock nut and washer with a 19mm socket. To remove the old shock, compress the shock and then pull it off the bottom stud. Install the new shock. Compress the shock, slide it onto the bottom stud, then slide the top of the shock into place, being careful not to twist it. Adjust the jack as necessary to get the right angle. Install the top bolt. Install the bottom nut and washer. Install the wheel, repeat on the other side, and you're done. We recommend going for a test drive, getting an alignment, and enjoying your new suspension.